Good
Oh,
evening, everyone. It's great to see you on the call. Thank you very much for being with us this evening on this webinar. Jan and I are quite excited to present this particular content, which we haven't presented before, have we, Jan? So we're looking forward to it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Justin Tipper. I am a trainer of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I'm also a business psychology coach. So I've done a lot of work with organizations and people around really getting their heads straight around communication, around leadership and management, that kind of area, really. And I'm very pleased to be working with Jan on the whole of the program for the entrepreneur's journey, of which this is a small part. So let's get to it, and we're going to talk about sabotage. Sabotage with an exclamation mark at the end, of course. So this evening, strange as though it may seem, we people have ways of sometimes sabotaging our own success. So we're going to explore this topic and the psychology of it in the next roughly 40 minutes. Why we might be doing this, where does it come from, and just a few pointers and tips about what we can do about it. The particular type of self-sabotage that we're going to be focusing on this evening and thinking through is that based upon something called limiting beliefs. So that's what we're going to go through. I'm going to show you some slides. So let's look at how limiting beliefs, beliefs in general, but limiting beliefs also operate, where they come from, where they sit in our minds, really. And this is an important topic because if we do find ourselves sabotaging our own success, it can have a major implication for our business. And the results that we get in our business. So it's really important that we raise our awareness of, am I doing this to myself? So the slide in front of you there is intended to represent you and I, ordinary, normal people. And the layers that we've got going on inside of ourselves help to explain how we sometimes go off track with our thinking. So let's start with a question. It's a rather general question. And the question is, in business or indeed in life, what do we end up with? What do we end up with? How do we know? How can we tell that we are behaving in some way? For example, in our work, what do we end up with? Well, we end up with results. Yeah. Sometimes we get the results that we want and the results that we expect, and that's great. But sometimes we get the results that we don't want, end up with results other than the ones we had planned to get. And there can be a number of different reasons. The two major reasons are external. So, for example, the economy can affect the results that we get, but also internal. So what's, depending on how we behave, that will result in what we get, the results in our business, in terms of, for example, profit, or the time we spend working with clients. So if we have sets of behaviors that lead to good results, well, that's great. If we have behaviors or we display behaviors that lead to poor results, then that can be a problem when we need to change that. We need to be aware of that. So where do our sets of behaviors come from? So in the particular business or context that you work in, that you might think of yourself as a specialist in, for example, where do those where does that set of behaviors come from that allows you to do the things that you do that other people can't do? Well, it comes from our capabilities, our sets of knowledge that we carry around with us, our skills as well. And well, clearly we get these from a number of different sources. We can, for example, take a qualification. Maybe we went to school and university are the places we start, of course, with those. We can get a qualification, or we can do other training afterwards, or we can read books. Nowadays, I don't know about you, but if I've got a techie problem that I need to solve, or something I want to do better to do with my training business, and how the technology works, I'll go to YouTube and look for somebody that's already solved the problem that I want to solve. So we have these sets of capabilities and knowledge around our particular area of expertise, our speciality. And this gives us ranges and sets of behaviors that we can use in order to get those certain results. But here's the thing. Sometimes we know what we should be doing, but we don't do it. Have you ever worked with somebody like that? I've worked with people who I knew what to do in their job, but they still didn't do it. Something was holding them back, or something was preventing them. And what can be the culprit in some cases is our set of beliefs. Our set of beliefs. So beliefs act like a tap or a valve and allow certain behaviors either to be switched on or turned off. Our beliefs, depending on whether they're empowering beliefs or limiting beliefs, can either increase the range of different behaviors that we can display in a certain situation, or they can close down our capabilities, our knowledge. They can even sometimes in the heat of the moment, they they can make it seem to us as if we have no knowledge at all of our particular subject. I've come across this with people I've worked with, where they get up to actually talk in front of a group of people about the thing that they're really knowledgeable about, is they freeze and then their minds go blank. Yeah. So depending on these empowering or limiting beliefs, they switch on or switch off certain sets of capabilities and knowledge and behaviors that we have in order to gain the results that we actually want. Just to finish this this diagram off, underneath beliefs, and even more unconscious than beliefs, is the rest of our unconscious mind, where our values live, for example, what's important to us, where our ego and our personality is stored, and the rest of the unconscious programming that goes with that. What we're going to focus on here are the beliefs themselves. So, as I was saying before, there are two types of beliefs that we're interested in this context. One is the set of empowering beliefs that we carry around with us. So what do I mean by empowering beliefs? Well, here are some examples that you might recognize from yourself, possibly, or you might think, oh, that's an interesting belief. Beliefs, by the way, it's useful to think in terms of not necessarily true or false where beliefs are concerned. Most people think that beliefs are formed from data, information that they've gained from the outside, but usually beliefs are learnt. Beliefs are learnt, and most of the beliefs that we have are learnt from the ages 0 to 7. So most of the beliefs that you carry around with you about your place in the world, your own capabilities, where you think you fit into society, how to treat people, all those sets of beliefs were probably taught to you unconsciously before the age 7. So however you grew up, the environment you grew up in, whether it be family or school or your group of friends or whatever, that's where you formed your beliefs about those important things in life. So it's better, more useful often to think about beliefs in terms of either useful, empowering beliefs or not useful, limiting beliefs. So let's look at some examples of empowering beliefs. So this is a good one to have or to take on if you're in business. If so-and-so, a person, has done this thing, then so can I. Just before I came online this evening, I was just reading about Elon Musk, who is, well, he's an interesting character, isn't he? Clearly, he has a set of beliefs which is very strong, I would say, because the man certainly doesn't lack any confidence in his own abilities, does he? And we can say to ourselves, well, okay, he's built several businesses, several very large businesses, and if Elon Musk can do it, then so can I. It's just a question of how. How do I go about that? So that's an example of an empowering belief. Let's look at another one. I have everything that I need to be successful. So if you were to take this belief on board, this empowering belief on board, what do you think that it would do for you? Well, it gets over that thought that may come to you from time to time, which is kind of in the format of, oh no, I couldn't do X because Y. And then you give yourself a reason why you can't do something. But in fact, if you believe that you have everything, all the resources that you need to be successful, including the ability to, for example, ask for help from other people or delegate or find the resource somehow that you need. You don't necessarily need to know, for example, Jan and I had an email problem. Her emails weren't reaching me. So, well, we couldn't fix that ourselves. Way too technical, way over my head. But I asked an IT friend of mine and he said, oh, yes, you need to get the SPF record sorted out. Oh, right. Okay, fine. So even if we don't know something, providing we believe that we have the resources, we will be able to find the answer or the skill or the person that we need to. Here's a great one from the environment of sales. Every no is one step closer to a yes. I don't know if you've come across this. I came across this several years ago, and it's really, really useful if you're selling to people or trying to convince them of your service is the right one or your product is the right one. It's a really, really great belief to hold. I was talking to a friend of mine who used to sell kitchens. He is a great salesperson. He could talk the hind legs off a donkey. I don't mean that every salesperson is like that. They're not all like that, but he's a really, really great salesperson. I said to him, how often when you were selling kitchens did you have to hear a no before you got to the yes? And he said, oh, maybe on average about 3 or 4 times. He said sometimes it might have been as many as 5 or 6 times where I had to hear a no before we got to the yes, and before I found a way, a form of words, some reason that, yeah, the client said, right, okay, yeah, we'll have that. So that's a great belief to have in sales, is just keep going through the no's and you will get to the yeses. The other type of beliefs are limiting beliefs. So here's an example. I don't deserve success. I don't deserve success. how do you think this would play out? So, for example, somebody comes to you and they say, "Oh, I want your product or your service, and I want 1,000 of them, or I want 2 years of you working with me." Yeah. What do you think if you're holding on to the belief, the limiting belief, I don't deserve success? What do you think that might do for the way that you respond to that particular person? Now, this is not to say that this belief or any beliefs are particularly conscious for you. The way that you might experience a limiting belief is simply by feeling a bit uncomfortable about this. You're not maybe sure why exactly you might be feeling uncomfortable about this. You might feel uncomfortable, or you might find a reason why you can't do that particular thing, why you can't take that particular sale, for example, why you can't accept this person's offer. So these beliefs often tend to be quite unconscious. Here's another one. I'm not a numbers stroke money stroke business person. That's not me. Now, that's an interesting one because that limiting belief is at the level of identity. Okay, so it says I am, and that means that it's going to be quite pervasive. It's going to be quite strong. And if you label yourself in that way, I am not X person, a business. For example, if you had somewhere inside of you the belief, well, I'm not really a business person, you might do very, very well in a business that you might call a small business. I have actually heard somebody years ago state, I am a small business person. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I am a small business person. So what do you think that would do for their prospects for growth in their business? Well, it might limit them quite severely if an opportunity comes up for them to, I don't know, sell their business or merge with somebody else or expand their business. They get a fantastic opportunity to expand their business in some way, but this limiting belief is sitting inside of them somehow. Oh, I'm just a small business person. Then that might be it. The opportunity will pass them by. They will find some way not to take that opportunity. And here's the other side of the sales situation I was talking about a moment or so ago, or one of the alternatives anyway. Nobody is interested in my products or service or ideas. Now, if you're holding, even though you might be wanting people to buy, if you're holding this limiting belief somewhere inside of you, and you offer it to somebody, and they say, "No, it's a bit too expensive," or "No, I can't afford it right now," or "No, it won't solve my problem." Well, that's a no. And if you hear that no and you're holding on to this limiting belief, then it will just reinforce itself. And the reason you'll get for giving up with this particular person will be, well, nobody's interested in this. Nobody's interested. As opposed to the empowering belief that, well, every time I hear a no, it means I'm one step closer to getting a yes. So all of these are examples of beliefs that are either empowering and useful to us in our business life or can hold us back. And they can be quite unconscious. The first way to disengage limiting beliefs is to be aware of them. And the way that you get aware of them is by just upping your awareness of feelings of discomfort sometimes when maybe opportunities or seemingly positive things are offered to you, and there's something inside that goes, no, hang on a second, this is wrong, we don't deserve it, or, well, nobody likes my products, do they? Or I'm not the expert here, or do they really believe me? Those kind of feelings and thoughts, those are good indicators that there are limiting beliefs hanging around that could be replaced with empowering beliefs. Yeah.
Can I just say, is this sort, you know, like sometimes you wake up in the morning and you think, oh, it's going to be a rubbish day, and you have that, it almost in spirals, and you have a rubbish day, don't you? Whereas you'll wake up sometimes, you'll go, oh, it's an amazing day, and just everything happens because you're like maybe thinking in a different way. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially on a Monday.
Yeah, especially on a Monday, and a good day on a Friday.
Yeah, cool.
Those are great examples. Those are great examples of exactly what we do, Sandra. So yeah, totally agree with you.
Right.
I can relate to quite a few of the things that you were saying, Justin. Especially on one of them was, oh, I'm not a businessman, I'm this. Because I very much am a hands-on person. I work on the tools, if you like. But then I'm always thinking, okay, how can I do this? And it's actually finding the answer is the difficult one. And then your last one you were talking about, I'm very much in a conscious process right now of wanting to expand, finding somebody to bring in. And then you think, oh, well, if I bring somebody in, you then start crushing that one. Thinking of ways, what if I do bring somebody in, will I have enough business to be able to continually employ them? And you start thinking of all these things that really kind of upset the apple cart. But then you bring yourself back, and then it's a question of, okay, when am I going to jump that hurdle and knock on his door and say, right, when do you want to come and start working for me? Because then you start thinking, well, I haven't got enough money in the bank to do it, to blah, blah. And you think of all the other reasons why you think you can't do it.
Yeah.
But really what you should be saying to yourself is giving yourself a good kick up the arse and just go and do it. And if it doesn't work out, well, at least you tried. Indeed.
Exactly. Actually, I'm going to come to an empowering belief, which is connected with that in the next section. So
great.
So let's go on. So we've gathered together here a number of different ways in which limiting beliefs can kind of show up in business. So we've called these categories. They're really headings for types of limiting belief that you might experience when you're doing the work that you do. So get that out of the way for the moment. So the first one is lack of self-confidence. How do you know you've got a lack of self-confidence? Well, you might struggle to make decisions. And then if you make a decision, you might second guess that decision. Lack of confidence might also mean that you avoid taking action at all because you don't want to do the wrong thing. So, for example, if you believe you're not an expert in your field, or you're not competent, or you're not the best in your field, how does that come across? Well, how might that affect the results that you get? It could affect the price that you charge, or the price that you feel comfortable charging. It might affect how you market yourself. It might affect whether you say yes to certain things and go for it, or whether you say, no, that you probably need somebody else for that. You might also have experienced imposter syndrome in the past, a recognized condition whereby we feel like any moment now, somebody's going to call us out. Somebody's going to say, you're a fraud. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's really interesting in researching this, how many people that we look up to, famous people, experienced imposter syndrome in the work that they do. Yet they still do it. Famous singers and actors and so on and so forth. So how do you get over this? Well, to increase your self-confidence, remind yourself of what you have achieved, how you got here, your journey, what you've done to get to where you are and the position that you're in. Remind yourself that about any qualifications that you have and the work that you had to do to gain those. Remind yourself about the experience that you've had, all of the things that you've learned. See, all of these sets of knowledge I was talking about earlier on and capabilities, once we become adept with them, they sink into our unconscious. And we kind of, with our conscious minds, we kind of forget that we've got all these amazing skills until somebody asks us a question about whatever it might be, and you go, "Oh yeah, well that's you just need to look for the SPF record or whatever." So we forget how much we've done to gain all the experience that we've had and all the hard yards that we've done. So remind yourself of that, and also the feedback or the testimonials that you get, the comments that you get from your clients or your customers about how great your service or your product is. So that can increase your self-confidence. Secondly, fear of failure. So a fear of failure will lead you to not taking risks, not trying new things. And this can stunt the growth of any business and prevents a person or a business from reaching its full potential. For example, some people I've come across, when they've had the opportunity to present to a group of potential clients or customers, they feared that they'll mess it up. They feared that they'll fail in some way, they'll look like a fool in front of other people, and therefore they've turned down the opportunity to speak to others as the voice of authority within their own speciality. So to reduce the fear of failure, take on a more empowering belief or set of beliefs around what you are capable of. So there's a belief in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that states there is no failure, only feedback. So in any situation where you try something, either you get the result that you wanted, which is a success, we could label it success, or we get something else that we didn't want or we didn't expect, and we can label that a failure. But failure is exactly and only that. It's a label that we apply to situations in which our expectations don't match the results that we get. And it's an entirely human construction. So instead of thinking of things as a failure, you can, when they don't work out the way that you want them to, you can think of them as information. Okay, what can I learn from it? It's the classic, what can I learn from this situation? And it's when failure is its most painful is when we can learn the most about ourselves and about how we should be operating and the beliefs that we need to have going forward. Another example of taking on more empowering beliefs, if you're not very confident in selling to people, is take on the belief about every no that you hear is a step towards a yes. For me personally, that's worked really, really well in the past. Thirdly, not adapting to change. Today's world, it seems, and certainly the technological side of things, seems to be evolving very, very fast. And in order to stay competitive, We need to keep up with current developments, technological developments, or product or service innovations in our particular area. And sometimes what we simply want is just to stick with what we know, rather than adapting and learning and flexing into something else. But of course, then we cut ourselves off from potential opportunities. We can miss opportunities to grow and thrive, or in extreme circumstances, even survive. So do you remember a company called Blockbuster Video?
Mhm.
Yeah, they were in many towns, certainly in the USA and in Europe, in the UK. There was one where I live in Douglas in the Isle of Man, and they are now no more. And the reason was that they weren't willing to adapt to change. They, the directors of that company stated in one of their meetings that they were a bricks and mortar business, and that their business model was people coming into their shops and renting the videos, the movies that they wanted to. Blockbuster, the board of Blockbuster actually had the opportunity to buy Netflix when Netflix was really, really tiny. And the guy that started Netflix went to them and said, look, I've got this business idea. I think this is going to be the trend. People are going to be downloading movies, or they're going to be streaming movies. And the Blockbuster people said, no, we don't think that's not right. That's not us. That's not our model. And we know what happened to Blockbuster. Well, they went out of business. And has anybody heard of Netflix since? Yeah, exactly. To overcome the preventing yourself from adapting to change, it's useful to develop a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Now, we haven't got time to go through the whole of growth mindset right now, but you can look it up online. There's quite a lot of information about it. And we do cover it in our weekend course as well. And we might actually even at some point in the future do a webinar on it. I think, Jan, that'd be a nice idea, wouldn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
So to overcome not adapting to change, if you tend to find yourself doing that, develop a growth mindset. Fourthly, not delegating. A failure to delegate the tasks that are not your core business, that you're not good at, that you don't really enjoy doing. How about bookkeeping, everybody? Unless you're an accountant, of course. This can lead to you becoming overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to juggle too many things, and you take your eye off and your focus off and your attention and your time away from the thing that you really need to be doing, which is your core business. So it's essential that you find a way to delegate those tasks that are not your core business. So bookkeeping, as I mentioned, anything to do with maybe admin, if you're not an admin person, certainly the business owners that I talk to, bookkeeping is the classic example, and they neither are good at it nor do they enjoy it. So why would you do it? In order to improve your ability to delegate, do a calculation. Firstly, you work out how much your time is worth. When you're actually getting paid for what you do, what you're great at, or what your product is, how much is your time worth? Is it worth £20 an hour? Or is it worth £100 an hour? Or is it worth £500 an hour? Obviously, you want to maximize those hours when you're actually getting paid. Then you work out which tasks you can delegate, because that you can get somebody else to do those tasks for you at less than the rate that you would charge your clients to do what you do brilliantly. Yeah. What this will result in is that you give those tasks that you don't enjoy and you're not very good at to somebody else, so you don't have to worry about that. And you then have more time to seek out clients, or to work with clients, or to have a chat with clients, or have a coffee with clients. And you can see how that works. Lastly, neglecting self-care. And this is actually under the heading of a limiting belief, because it's around, oh no, I have to work all the hours that I possibly can because I've got too much to do. Maybe you haven't delegated enough. And the rest, myself, I have to put second or even last. However, there's a huge amount of research and evidence now that working hours that are too long, not sleeping enough, or not getting a good quality of sleep, failing to take breaks, not paying attention to your nutrition, not paying attention to relationships, all of those can have a devastating effect, not only on our health, but on the way that we operate our business. So there's a good amount of evidence to suggest that if you don't take regular breaks during a work day, then your ability to focus or your ability to be creative suffers. If you're working on just one task, the average amount of time that somebody in the knowledge business, that's my kind of business, where it's mostly about information, is working, the average amount of time that somebody can pay attention to one thing is about 20 minutes. And after that, our ability to pay attention to that thing goes down, it goes off. So it's a great idea to take a break every so often, 20 minutes or half an hour. Just have a walk around, make yourself a cup of coffee, chat to somebody else if you want to, go for a walk, listen to a podcast for a few minutes, something like that, and then come back to your desk or wherever it is that you work and refocus on the task and do another similar amount of time. It might seem to us sometimes frivolous, but that's our limiting belief in action. If you go with the evidence and the research, then it's time well spent to reset yourself. If you were thinking of it in terms of, I don't know, cars, machinery, vehicles, you wouldn't expect to drive a vehicle for hours and hours and hours, maybe at 70 or 80 miles an hour, without some replenishment of something. Either you need a rest or the car does. It needs refilling with petrol or it needs some attention. So we need to think of ourselves as a resource within our business, the same as the other resources, the same as the other assets, and look after this particular asset. So those are some of the ways in which we can sell ourselves short, really, and our limiting beliefs can come up.
I think we can all sort of identify with that, and I want to say, and my favorite is, but kind of like they're all my favorite, but the one that I really love is the fear of failure thing, that there is no failure, only feedback. Because if we could just approach everything, even like what you've just said, Richard, about your idea about taking on somebody, and you've got to try, you said it yourself, you know, you're up for trying, you've got that information, you know that you can take on more work if you take on this person, and you have a go, because the feedback that you get from that is going to be your success. So it's either going to be, wow, yes, it really worked, and I've tripled the amount of work that I've got now, or it's going to be, oh, well, that didn't work, and I'll have to find a different way. You know, you put people to work, or you put products to work, or you put things to work, or whatever. But I love the fact that you can just ease up on yourself and say, this is feedback, it's not failure. This is never, I mean, for people like Dyson, people like Colonel Saunders with Kentucky, with Edison, you know, they all, it's the statistics, I don't know what the figures are, but I think Dyson's was, he had 1,000 goes at doing that cyclonic motor for the Dyson vacuum cleaner before he got there. Well, he didn't class every one as a failure, he classed it as the the learning that took him to the next stage, where eventually he got to this amazing machine that's obviously made him extremely successful financially anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
brilliant. Thank you.
Good, great stuff. Any other questions or comments from what we've talked about?
I was just going to say, so I think that thing about the no's mean you'll get a yes at the end, because I think for me, being new to doing this, I've had a couple of no's, and it can really, you then start to think really negative. You get the negative thoughts, don't you? Like, can I really do this? So all those negative things, then your positive is gone, isn't it? And you have to really sort of, so that rung really true. And actually that delegating, because I'm thinking, oh, I've got to do all this stuff. I'm rubbish at bookkeeping. That'll take me hours to do bookkeeping. So maybe I need to think about that. So yeah, that was really helpful.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
That's our intention. Excellent.
Okay, in terms of time, we've got sort of 10 minutes or so. How are we doing, Justin?
Yes, good. There's one more thing that I should tell you about. Since we're on this call, Jan and I are going to present the Entrepreneur's Journey weekend business retreat at the Mill House in the Isle of Man. So you would be very welcome to come along and join us to work on your business rather than work in your business. I was listening to a podcast today about, and it was about business owners investing in themselves. And the main way that you can do that is just to give yourself some time to think about your business in a way that you're not actually running it at the time. You if you like, you take a step back from it, or take a helicopter view of your business and think about, how could I streamline it? How could I improve it? What else can I do? What should I put in my business plan? So that those kinds of things. So that's what it'll be about. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we can extend, we expand on some of the things that we've covered in the webinars, which is it's a wonderful opportunity to like, and we start getting so excited about the content of the course that, you know, I think it would actually turn into a week at least if we could cover everything we wanted to cover. And interestingly, things like this, things that we've just been covering, like the limiting beliefs, and there's some lovely models that you can use, that you can take away to actually apply some of this stuff. There's a lovely model for this. It's called the ABCDE. That's a nice one. That's a nice, easy one to remember, isn't it? And it was created by Martin Seligman, who's like the godfather of positive psychology. And it's doing really exactly what Justin's just explained. And it's identity. A is for adversity. So you look at the thing that is the problem. A bit like you just said, Sandra, you know, you've had a couple of discovery calls or whatever you call them, and so people have said no, and you start beating yourself up and think, oh God, nobody wants this, and this is I'm hopeless at this, and what am I doing, all that kind of stuff. And then you think about that and think, well, hang on a minute, what am I saying? You know, is that really the truth? You know, what are my beliefs around that? And then you look at the consequences, how it makes you feel, you know, what you're saying to yourself. And then you dispute that. You actually say, is this really true? And I've had plenty of calls, and people do say yes. And, you know, and I have had a call and people are referring me, and, you know, you dispute that. And then you put the energy in. So that's the E. And that is about what action you take. So for all these things that we're uncovering on the course, they're really practical things. They're really real life things. But then we have got some simple, not necessarily easy, but models that you can use then to actually apply the solutions, if you like. That's really what this is about. It's about finding the solutions, identifying where the issues are, and then providing the solutions and owning those solutions and applying them to your business, because there's nobody knows your business better than you. So you know that you can take these models and apply them into your business and make them fit into your business.